Hello, this is Dr. Goodin with Driven to Doctorate. Please pause, go down to the description, and fill out the pre-video feedback. At the end of the video, please fill out the post-video feedback. That way I can improve my videos. Also, you'll be consenting to allow me to use the anonymous data from your feedback for research purposes. Here you're asked to explain how the sampling guidelines associated with the chosen methodology and design will be followed. So basically what we want to make sure is that if you have a quantitative experimental study, you need to use random sampling, which is appropriate for an experiment. If you're using an ethnographic or phenomenological study, you might use more of a purposive or convenient sample. And so you need to probably use citations to support your choice of sampling method. So yin, and then I'm just going to say 2020 because I'm not sure if or when Yin ever said this. Yin suggested that a case study design should use purposive sampling methods. That's an example. So you'd want to have a sentence like that for whatever would be a qualitative case study design. So you also want to explain your plan. So for all of a sudden I'm doing a study on firefighters. Let's say that you needed 15 firefighters for a qualitative case study. Well, this would be having 3,000 in a Facebook group might show good support. You'd want to say in Miles and Huberman suggested that, one said maybe that 5 to 15 were appropriate for saturation, while said 10 to 30. The current study or the proposed so you'd want to do it something like this. You want to actually spell out their names and cite them, and this is probably not correct. The study or the proposed study the researcher will seek to obtain 12 to 18 participants unless saturation is reached beforehand. And then you want to give a good sort of understanding of where you might get these 12 to 18 participants, and create a very solid case for reaching that. For quantitative studies, I'll put this back in double space. So for quantitative studies, a power analysis must be reported to include the parameters: effect size, alpha, beta, number of groups, and that's going to depend on the type of statistical analysis you're doing, the design that you're doing, and evidence must be presented that the minimum required sample size will be met. So basically you're going to do a power analysis, minimum sample size, and you're going to state that, say it's 212. Then you're going to say, well, here's the type of sampling I'm doing, and in order to reach the minimum sample size, as you did with qualitative, you need to say, here's the plan I have. I'm going to use maybe Facebook, like you did with qualitative in that same group, but you are likely going to need a whole lot or much larger sample size. You might provide compensation to boost participation. You could use either of these two to sort of they can be used to help you recruit participants, normally at a cost. And so what you want to do is to make a very good case that you can reach your minimum sample size, remembering also that if it's a survey, there's about a 10% response rate. So one thing I encourage all of my students to do in especially quantitative studies is to try to at least double, triple. Let's say if the minimum sample size was 200, I'd say minimum, let's go for 500. My dissertation, I forget what the minimum sample size was. I got every single person I could. Why not? Especially with a survey, you're not doing an hour interview for each one. You get as many as you can. One way to provide compensation is also raffling. It depends on your IRB committee and what they think is appropriate. Generally these days, what I've been hearing is they just want you to make sure that people are paid the amount that they might get in a real life situation for 20 minutes of taking a survey. They're not going to get paid $100. They're not going to get paid $1. That would be too little, or too much and too little. So you want the compensation to be appropriate. But you also want to plan on a low response rate. So you want to really reach for a very large sample. If you get it, great. You have more than enough and a much more impressive study. However, you're also sort of prepared for a low response rate and hopefully meeting that minimum sample size, even if you don't get what you're hoping for, that 500 that I'd suggest with a 200 minimum. And so those are some strategies and things you need to explain. You need to explain your plan. How are you going to sample, but how are you going to sample successfully? So these two things are probably what I'll leave you with. Again, please pause or let the video end, go down to the description, and take the post-video feedback. Thank you very much.